see if we can get this stream going. I think we are live. Let me know if you guys can hear me, and hopefully we're good to go. Let me just paste this a few different places, and then we'll go ahead and jump in to Cryptoverse. All right, so yeah, so I think the main thing I want to talk about today, right, is just the markets where Bitcoin is back above 11,000. Let me know if the stream is working. I'm not 100% sure if it's working or not, because it seems to be lagging a little bit. So if you guys can hear me and everything seems to be okay, let me know. Otherwise I need to figure out what's going on. All right, you guys can hear me. All right, so I mean, as far as Bitcoin is concerned, it's still just over 11K, right? So it's too early to think that it's necessarily going to break back above to this prior level. Remember, we've talked about this. Let me get rid of this. So basically, this level right here being the top of the current reaccumulation zone, right? So this would be the top, and then up back above at, say, 12K, which is right around here, is the next top. So the current regime that we are in is more so this one right here, which is at approximately 10K or so. Okay, so this is where we are, and as far as I can tell, we have not come back into this regime up here. It's a completely different regime. Once we move up into this regime, I would anticipate altcoins probably starting to get moving again. Okay, at the time though, Bitcoin is still essentially at the same level where it has visited not too long ago, right? Back in a few weeks ago in September, Bitcoin visited this level, and we are here again. And the goal again would be to move back above it and to come back into this regime. However, I mean, you guys know the drill by now. If we don't, and we get rejected again, and we come back down to the 20-week moving average, which maybe by then will be around 10.4 or so, by the time if we retest it, then you have to consider that a lot of altcoins will probably bleed back down, right? They'll go right back down to where they were, maybe even go lower. So this is just something you need to consider. So I wouldn't get too enthusiastic about this move yet. We're not too far away from becoming more enthusiastic about it, right? If it moves back up into this level, then there's a good chance that we then go back up to 12K, maybe come back down again to the 20-week moving average, right? If it does something like that, and then continue on up. But for the time being, I think it's best to at least be cautiously optimistic, right? We're optimistic in the sense that Bitcoin is still well above its 20-week moving average. It's now 7 or 8% above its 20-week moving average. So from that perspective, it's doing quite well. And this is, at least during this market cycle, it's now been above the 20-week moving average after testing it back over here for approximately 6 weeks, right? So if we were to take a measured move from our first test in this regime over here, we've been currently above it for around 35 days. Okay, so that, I mean, it's doing quite well. And the point, right, is if you look at prior attempts to hold the 20-week, right, back over here, we really didn't put up a huge fight. And you can see that it has held as support before. It held support here, but ultimately when we came crashing back through, it was the bad news bears. So what we want to do is we want to be cautious here. We want to be cautiously optimistic rather than just think that everything's going to start going crazy in the short term, because there's always a great chance that it doesn't, right? And that even if it does, if Bitcoin moves back into this regime, then in the short term, at least over the next few days, if it were to move back up, there's a good chance that altcoins could bleed against Bitcoin. Not all altcoins, of course. I mean, some are doing quite well against Bitcoin, but a lot of them would likely bleed against Bitcoin if Bitcoin were to spike back up in the short term. What we want, the ideal situation for altcoins, again, is if Bitcoin is moving sideways well above its 20-week moving average, right? I mean, after it made this move, after it made this move above the 20-week over here and then moved sideways, altcoins were doing quite well. And then again, back at this move here, when it was moving sideways up here, altcoins were doing quite well. When you see this volatility to the downside and it's testing the 20-week, this is not good for altcoins. This is just not good for altcoins, especially with respect to their Bitcoin ratios. And again, I mean, we see the importance of the 20-week moving average. I mean, I think there's probably some other channels that are talking about it now, but again, this is a key area. And if you have watched some of the other videos, I have started showing the if we switch over to the weekly time frame, I have started showing the 20-week SMA and then the 21-week EMA crossover, and basically just coloring the line, or coloring the regime between them, because some people tend to like the 21-week EMA more than the 20-week SMA. I prefer the 20-week SMA. I think it does a pretty good job of identifying when the party's over, right here, party was over. But at the same time, there's reasons why you might want to look at the 21-week EMA, and is therefore also why we looked back and said, okay, well, if no matter what you like, whether it's the 21 EMA or the 20 SMA, they tend to do pretty much the same in a bull market, right? They're pretty much the same in a bull market. There's not going to be a huge difference if we're just moving up. The main place that it becomes a difference, right, is in regimes like this, where it's oscillating back and forth. One of the things we talked about in a recent video, again, was this thing here. The first move above the 20-week was back over here in the last cycle, right, in October, up to the top and then back down to this regime, kind of seeing this little pattern here play out. We measured this angle on the aspect ratio that I was using at the time. It was around 50 degrees, and then this one was slightly less. And this was also accompanied by a crossover of the 20-week SMA and the 21-week EMA. And then if we scroll to the present time, maybe we're in the first stage of that, right? So this would be the first one, and then maybe this is the crossover, and then it looks something like that. And if it did, then this means that, if the price does rally and then comes back down to it and tests it, then it would look pretty similar to the last market cycle if that were to occur. So I'll get to questions in a bit. I just want to kind of talk about the markets really quick, go through some of the different coins that we're looking at. So the other thing is, of course, the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio, and this is one that I think is of utmost importance, right, to the market cycle. We have these these like bunny hills of the Ethereum ratio against Bitcoin. Nothing has been quite significant as of yet. I like to just call them bunny hills because we haven't seen the Ethereum mountain range form again, right? I mean, this is, as I've joked before, what's your favorite mountain range? I tend to like the Ethereum mountain range against Bitcoin, something like this. So what we're seeing right now, these are just the foothills, right? I mean, these are the foothills to potentially another mountain range that we want to see. But as we've said before, this green band that I've had highlighted for a long time and this general uptrend here, I do anticipate that this regime is the next reaccumulation phase for Ethereum. Remember, when we were back over here, we identified this as a key accumulation phase. We made videos earlier in the year saying, Ethereum, the accumulation phase of a lifetime, Ethereum dreaming of spring, the idea that we are essentially right around the corner from a major breakout against Bitcoin. And I think we're this 2020 is the momentum shift year, right? I mean 2018, 2019 took us down. For those that like traditional TA, sorry, first of all, but if you do, I mean, there's, you could call that a potential double bottom. And then 2020, the beginning of 2020 seems to be like a momentum shift, right, in the price of Ethereum against Bitcoin. So this is what we were wanting to catch, remember, and is why in December, as I mentioned, Ethereum was very undervalued against Bitcoin. And we said, based on historical data, buying in December has worked out pretty well, right? If you're buying Ethereum with a certain amount of Bitcoin, as we've showed before, buying in December and then selling within the next 3 months typically results in a pretty nice gain of Ethereum against Bitcoin, sometimes being over 1,000% up, sometimes just being a few 100% up, but every single time, or sometimes even being less than 100%, but every single time a conversion of Bitcoin in December to Ethereum and then a conversion back in the first quarter of the year has always resulted in a nice short-term ROI, as you can see. So the thing with the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio, obviously things have cooled off a little bit, and we might even be coming back down to test this trend line. If we were to test this trend line, which, I mean, of course we can go below it. I mean, we even went below it here. By the way, this is a random trend line that I drew and I didn't even think that much about it. But if we do go back down to it, it likely means that Bitcoin is retesting the 20-week moving average, right? So if it continues to test it, right, and come back down to the 20-week moving average, then the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio will likely continue to move back down with it. Now, with this in mind, imagine Bitcoin goes to 12K. In the short term, the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio might bleed, but then maybe Bitcoin starts moving sideways, so then the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio starts to increase some, and then maybe Bitcoin decides, you know what, let's retest the 20-week, and it comes back down. So this is one of those scenarios where if we do see kind of a capitulation of Ethereum against Bitcoin in the fourth quarter of the year, which we have seen happen many times, right, especially in December, then it could present ourselves with a nice December buy of Ethereum to then maybe hopefully see it rally more in the beginning of 2021. Now, on the other hand, if Bitcoin continues to just hammer back at the 20-week moving average without even going back to 12K, maybe it just goes straight back down to 10.3 or something, in this situation, the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio would likely get down here sooner, and it might even come into this regime over here. So again, this is what I would consider, this whole regime right here is what I would consider the next accumulation range for Ethereum against Bitcoin. As we identified this one down here, I think that over the long haul, we will spend a decent amount of time between a ratio of 0.028 to 0.042. I think this is going to be a very critical regime for the Ethereum ratio against Bitcoin. And hopefully after we've, if we do build out time in that regime, then hopefully we can continue working on our Ethereum mountain range against Bitcoin. So let me just look in the comments, make sure no one's trolling or anything like that. All right, so let's continue on. The next one we want to talk about is Link. Okay, so you guys, we've talked about Link a lot. Link is one of those ones that I've said many times. It is a coin I cannot imagine not holding for the market cycle, right? And the reason is because, as many of you know, it does really well against Bitcoin. So if we pull it up, if we pull the Link Bitcoin ratio up, the story essentially tells itself, right? We know that it improves your covariance matrix when including Link in your portfolio, and so if you look at the long-term trend of Link against Bitcoin, as we've seen many times, it tends to just go through these boom and bust cycles, right? Where it has a bubble and then it comes back down, and then it has a bubble and then it comes back down, and then another bubble and then back down, bubble back down, and it just continues this pattern, right? And we've seen this pattern play out time and time again. And I even published a video on the exponential growth of Link against Bitcoin. And it's because of this exponential. First of all, we know that the exponential growth of Link against Bitcoin will not last forever. We know that, and this is not the point. One of the criticisms I see is saying that of course this isn't going to last forever. Like, it's not going to continue to go up like that forever, but we can sure as hell take advantage of it for as long as it does do that, right? And by the way, when we talked about this ratio, even in 2019, when we were talking about Link in 2019, and we identified this amazing move in Bitcoin and speculated that it would likely to continue, and it did, right? I mean, even when we talked about it in 2019, this exponential growth has continued. If you do yourself a favor and just hide the price and just look at some of the moving averages, and let's just look at some of these. So this is the 50-day and the 200-day moving averages. Does this not tell you all you need to know? I mean, this is, in my opinion, this is a amazing chart to look at, and it helps curb out a lot of that noise. And then when you do get people that are buying up here, and then the ones that are selling you their bags down here, this basically answers the question that I often get on the channel, right? And one of the questions that I get is, well, you talk about Bitcoin going to 100K maybe by 2023 or something. Where's the money going to come from? And my answer is, right, just look around you. There's plenty of dumb money in crypto already, and believe me, there's plenty waiting to join. When Link was up 10x in a relatively short period of time, you had people pouring in tons of money up at the top here, right? Tons of money. And I was trying to say, you know what? It's overheated right now. You might want to let it cool off. It's not going to stop the dumb money from coming in and telling you that the price is just going to go up forever, right? It's not going to stop it. So when you say things like, okay, well, where's the money going to come from? First of all, if you're asking me that, it might make me think that the money's going to come from you. But just be cognizant of the fact that the money, in the same way that there was money that took Bitcoin from 10 cents to $1, and from $1 to $10, and from $10 to $100, and $100 to $1,000, and $1,000 to $10,000, but now you're telling me that the money doesn't exist to take it from 10,000 to 100,000. I agree that it's going to take a lot more volume to get it there. We know that cryptocurrencies with small market caps, like 10 million or 5 million, can increase in an order of magnitude a lot easier than cryptocurrencies with much higher market caps. Yeah, we know this, right? But it doesn't mean that the party's going to stop for Bitcoin at 10K. It just means it's going to take longer to get there. And we're going to get there, I think, and we're going to get there in a few years, right? Again, not 2021. This is a great segue into the typical spiel of there's no evidence to support the idea that Bitcoin's going to 100K in 2021. It's most likely going to take several more years. I would say 2023 or so would probably be the sweet spot, plus or minus 6 or 8 months or so. So again, look for a narrative shift in what Bitcoin's doing. Or what people interpret Bitcoin to be doing, right? I mean, this is obviously, if you follow this channel, you're aware of the fact that there's no evidence really to support four-year cycle theory or anything like that. I thought about making an April Fool's video where I just talk about the evidence of four-year cycles and just have it be a blank video, because there is none. But at the end of the day, we recognize that cycles are likely lengthening, and you need to be cognizant of that, right, in terms of identifying how you want to play this market cycle, right? If you think that it has to go to 100K in 2021 and you're betting the family farm on it, then you should take a step back from what other people on crypto Twitter or crypto YouTube are telling you, because most of these people, by the way, that are telling you 100K next year, they're doing it for clicks, right? They're doing it for clicks, they're doing it for likes, they're telling you what you want to hear. I'm trying to tell you what you need to hear. And what you need to hear is not my opinion, but what the data suggests, right? And the data suggests, as I've showed many times on the channel, that lengthening cycles are the name of the game, and it's going to take us several more years to get to the next paradigm shift in the price of Bitcoin. But I still contend that there's a lot of money to be made on the way. not only in Bitcoin, but also in trading altcoins. And this is why we cover, the ratios of coins like Ethereum against Bitcoin, taking profits in short-term bubbles, by the way, taking profits up here. If you think it's easy to say in hindsight, on the premium list, I did tell people, it's overheated. The risk of Ethereum Bitcoin has reached 0.6. This is the time to set a stop loss of Ethereum back to Bitcoin. Same thing with Link, guys. Same thing with Link. I mean, when Link hit $20 back in August 17th or so of 2020, so just a month and a half ago or so, this price point on the Link Bitcoin valuation was tied for the highest it had ever been. So it had reached, so if you follow the channel, you know that we have these risk levels, right? And I use these risk levels to trade. But the risk level at this point of Link against Bitcoin was tied with two other times in history where it had also reached that level. Okay, and this is how we said, okay, you know what, the market's overheated. Let's let it cool off a bit. And by the way, I should remind you that these strategies, whether you subscribe to the premium list or not, I mean, you can garnish a lot of it from the public channel. These strategies are not meant to help you time the top and time the bottom identically, right? They're not meant to do that. What the idea is to scoop it out, right? And you look at the chart and you say, you know what, if I'm sitting here and this is where we are in this move, and you say, you know what, the price is starting to go up, and we don't know how high it's going to go because at this point we're in completely new territory, right? We're in completely new territory. We have no idea how high it's going to go. Therefore, you have to be honest with yourself, and you say, I don't know. Hold on, let me. Oh, okay, sorry. You look at this and you say, you know what, I don't really know how high it's going to go, but I recognize that my perception of the market is somewhat flawed, and where I think the top is likely not where it's going to be. And so, you take profits at various levels. I'm just drawing the levels that I took profits at, and this is all published on the premium list. So at $6, at $10, at $14. So right here, and then at 1850. So, and by the way, this was the dynamic DCA approach, right? So it was X here, it was 2X here, 3X and 4X. So I was selling 4 times as much Link up here as it was at the bottom. Now, the interesting thing, right? So the first contention I have with Link again is it's a coin that I cannot afford not to hold it in my portfolio. And I enjoy seeing the trend play out time and time again, the boom and bust cycle, right? The dumb money pouring in up here, the smart money coming in a few weeks later to grab up all the cheap Link that the dumb money was buying at the top. Now, one of the things, in terms of these sells, of course, right, is you don't know where the top is, but in the same manner, you don't know where the bottom is. And so one of the common things that I see happen, just around the cryptoverse, right? The cryptoverse is fairly large. One of the things I see is that as people say things like, I'll buy Link when it goes to $2, or I'll buy Link when it goes to $1, or yeah, it's clearly going to $3, so I'll just wait until then. All right. So the point is, in saying stuff like this, is you have no idea if it's going to go down that low. And in the same manner that I sold 2/3 of my Link starting from here and then on the way up, right, at these risk levels that we already talked about, I also recognize that I want to get some of that Link back, right? How do I get that Link back? Well, I have to wait for the risk level to drop. I have to be patient. And then if the risk level drops to what I think is the reaccumulation zone, then at that point I can start to buy it back again. And by the way, you guys know the risk levels are dynamic. So, if we look at the chart, and I mean it doesn't matter now because they've already changed. But back over here, the risk level back on September 23rd was at the 0.5 risk level, which is essentially the point where I'd say that for me, Link has to get below, it was at $8. So at this point, it allowed me to scoop a little bit up down here. I did not time the bottom. I mean, the bottom was at like 720 or something, 730, depending on what exchange you're using. I think I got some at like 770, but who cares, right? I mean, who cares? It was close enough to the bottom. And then it quickly exited that 0.5 risk level, right? We only spent about a couple days in that regime, came back out. I said, you know what? I wish I had gotten more. Risk is too high now. It doesn't merit further accumulation at this point because it spiked so quickly. And when it did spike, the stop loss that I set was at the 0.55 risk level, which happened to be 961, and it got triggered rather quickly. Now, then it became, you know what? Okay, well, it came back up a little bit, but it didn't make it to the next risk regime, and it came all the way back down. But by this time, when it came back down, the risk levels had changed. The 0.5 risk level was now, if you believe me, I mean, maybe you don't believe me, but if you go to the premium list, it's all documented, of course, but it was at 846. Okay, so 846 was the 0.5 risk level as of a couple days ago, and it enabled me to scoop up more Link right there. And I think this is a good learning exercise. Now, the first thing I want to identify here is that there's nothing magical about the 0.5 risk level other than Ben says that's where he starts accumulating, right? This is where I would start accumulating. There's, of course, a chance that the risk drops, or the price drops below this level, and we move sideways for a bit. So the point of these risk levels that I talk about is not to say that it has to immediately bounce, right? I mean, I would contend that I got lucky and my buy immediately yielded a short-term ROI, right? I'm not going to pretend like there's some magic sauce in the risk level to have made it bounce identically at that level, because there will come a time where it will go below the 0.5 risk level and it won't immediately bounce back above it. But the point is to say that, you know what, this is the risk level that I'm okay accumulating Link at and not above it, right? So when it exited the 0.5 risk level, back when it exited it, it was around $4 or $5. So in this regime, I was not buying Link. All I was doing was selling Link. In this regime, I was not buying or selling. It hit here, I bought some, came up to the risk level, I sold some, came back down, I bought some. This is the strategy that I've talked about, right? You just have to be patient. And one of the things that people do, right, is when it comes back down a little bit and then it pumps back up, they then chase. You chase the move because you say, oh wait, it's back to normal, we're going to continue on up. But when it's that overheated, it's up 10x, it's best, in my opinion, to focus on lower risk assets that are not so overheated in the short term. So it's better to just be patient. Let your money is important to you. Don't just go throw it at something that is pumping. I mean, this is not financial advice, but it is my opinion that you should be more patient with it and wait for the right moves into the market. So again, the risk levels, if you're not sure what they are, you can find them on the public channel. So just search for them on my YouTube channel, and you should be able to find plenty of videos that talk about the risk levels of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Link, ADA, and a few others. There's plenty of videos there. And if you want access to them, check out my website, intothecryptoverse.com. So if we go back to the Link Bitcoin ratio, what we're looking for now is to see, you know what, I mean, it still pretty much got hammered. It's at 93,000 sats, but let's look at if we look at the last peak, right? I mean, there was a peak over here back in July of 2019, and it slowly came back down, and then it moved sideways for a bit before garnishing up enough steam to move again. Now, if you zoom out, right, it looks parabolic. And we have still not experienced what Link can do in a bull market. All we know is what it's capable of in a bear market and what it's capable of in an accumulation phase. Because you could argue that we're at the beginning of a bull market, so we're starting to understand what it is capable of, but we don't know that for sure yet, because it's possible that Bitcoin breaks the 20-week and we kick the can down the road. So with that in mind, we need to stay diligent on what Link's doing, right? And for me, it means waiting until the risk levels are low enough. We've had 2 opportunities now, as far as I'm concerned, to get back into Link, and now the price has shot back up to over $10. So again, I would say at this point, it's a little bit too, the risk level is a little bit too high for me. And I just stick to that. I stick to the math. So Monero is another coin we've been following, and this was the coin that we've identified this accumulation range over here. We've been talking about it for a few months, saying that, you know what, despite the fact that there are so many coins that bleed when Bitcoin tests the 20-week over and over, we said, you know what, this will be the one. This will be the one that is more likely to continue to break out. And the reason is two very specific reasons, right? The first reason being that, well, we identified this accumulation range, and it looks pretty similar to the prior accumulation range that we saw with ADA against Bitcoin, right? If you go back and look at this ADA accumulation range down here, we said back in 2019 and 2020, hey, this is the accumulation range. Like, either get on board or forget about it, right? And this is the accumulation range. When it gets up here, there's no sense in chasing when you had years to accumulate down here. So with Monero, we said, you know what? This looks like a pretty good accumulation range. We've seen other coins break out, like Ethereum. We've seen coins break out, like every altcoin you can imagine. Why is Monero not broken out? Well, if we go look back at the last cycle, and we see, you know what? In January, Monero had a nice breakout against Bitcoin. From January to March, it broke out about 165%. During this time, Bitcoin was holding the 20-week moving average as support, and it saw a pretty nice move, okay? And now we're seeing something similar. But what's more exciting is the move that came after, later in 2016. So in May of 2016, it moved up 1,400% against Bitcoin. So this was the whole point. It was saying, you know what? I think this is the accumulation range for Monero against Bitcoin. It looks like everything is primed perfectly for it. So let's see if the same strategy plays out again. If you look at Monero against USD, it's actually near the local top, right? So if we moves up a little bit. I'll try to get the stream going again, but if it goes out, then I'll have to just come back later. It says excellent connection right now, but we'll see if it stays that way. I think you would think that I could afford a decent internet connection, but it is what it is. So okay, so the contention right again is okay, Monero's at the prior local top, but at the same time, ADA, if you look at that ADA move, and it had a similar accumulation range against Bitcoin, you could have said that it was also at its local top, right, back in, earlier on, and it still managed to go above it against Bitcoin, a fairly decent amount, right? I mean, it moved another 60% against Bitcoin before it cooled off. If Monero were to move another 60% against Bitcoin from where it currently is, which is also the local top, then it would put it. This was against USD. So if it were to move another 60% against USD from the local top, it actually put it pretty high. It actually put it around $180. So just to give you an idea. And we'll get to some questions. We'll get to some questions in a minute. Okay, so then looking at ADA, I actually have a video on ADA that is on deck to show up, so you'll see it soon. I recorded it last night. Of course, the markets have moved today, but the general idea is it looks like it's kind of getting squeezed a little bit between the 50-day and the 200-day moving averages, and you can see that here, right? The 50-day seems to be kind of where it's topping out each time, and the funny thing is it also seems to be respecting the 50-day on its valuation against Bitcoin as well. So this was something that I thought was interesting. And if you look, it also seems to be going between the 50-day and the 200-day. So almost the exact same trend, whether you measure it by its Bitcoin valuation or whether you measure it by its USD valuation. Also, if we could get some people to like the video, we only have 71 likes. So if you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel. Also, give the video a thumbs up if you're enjoying it, so you can see future videos and future streams. So make sure you give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I think with that said, we can go ahead and start with some questions. If you guys have questions, so if you have questions, put them in the chat. The other two main ones are, there's Polkadot, which I've said before is one that we're going to watch this market cycle. I think it has a big role to play, and so far, I mean, there's no really great way to understand what the price is going to do in the short term. But I do think it does have a role to play this cycle. And then also, I think the Uniswap governance token will be an interesting one. It has had a pretty interesting introduction to the cryptocurrency market, shooting up at launch and then kind of slowly bleeding since then. But this is another one that I will probably follow somewhat on the channel over the next several years, because whenever Uniswap goes crazy, you're probably going to see the Uniswap governance token, whether it makes sense to or not. People like to FOMO into these coins. So with that said, let's go ahead and have any questions, and I'll try to get to answer some of these questions. PR Stu says, love your content. How do you recommend to store crypto in a hardware wallet? Yeah, I mean, I think owning, having your own keys is decent. So you can obviously store it in a hardware wallet. You could also, if you want to get a little bit more risky, you could try various DeFi and CeFi, so decentralized finance and centralized finance platforms, try to earn interest on your crypto. But the majority of my crypto I do hold in a hardware wallet. So Anders Christensen says, Ben, do you think we in the future will see a super bear cycle market, maybe after the peak or maybe after two peaks? Well, as I've identified before, let me actually I need to do something really quick. I meant to post this in one other place. So one of the things that you have to consider, so let me read the question again because I got distracted. So Anders Christensen says, Ben, do you think we in the future will see a super bear cycle market, maybe after the peak or maybe after two peaks? Can the big macro trend just keep going up? Well, when we've talked about this before, the general idea is talking about these super cycles. I mean, these are just fancy terms for talking about lengthening cycles, in my opinion. So if you look at it, and one of the ways that we can look at it again is to just hide the price, right? And then just look at the trend. So the trend is obviously up, but the rate at which it's going up is decreasing, right? So this is we're looking at a type of logarithmic growth here. So I do think that it will eventually, it'll slowly flatten out over as we continue to march through the cycle. So let's plot on here the trusty regression band, right? And I guess we can add price if you guys think it's important. And we look at it and you say, well, you know what? Well, this is where we currently are in our cycle. If we continue to move up to 20K over the next, say, 16 months or so, and then we go parabolic over the next 16 to 18 months after that. So let's say we go back up to 20K, and then we slowly move back up, and maybe we go to 100K sometime in 2023, something like this, okay? And then we come back down. Now, if you extend this out, something like this, then the fair value of Bitcoin at the next halving will be around $40,000 to $50,000. So one of the interesting things about this fit is that the fair value of Bitcoin has always been what the price has been at the halving. So if you go back and look at each halving, the price was actually within 1% to 2% of what this regression band identifies as the fair value. So if this trend continues, let me see if I have one of these up here. Yeah, here's a good chart. Let me just show this chart. So here's the chart that I showed on the channel the other day. Let me scroll all the way back because I want to show you guys one where it projects out. So here's the chart, and if you project it out for say 2 decades, then the fair value of Bitcoin would reach $100,000 by the year 2027. Now, I think this is too optimistic. I think that after each cycle, it's best to refit the data to get a better and better fit, because after each market cycle, the fit is going to be slightly different. Now, we're honing in on what I think the fair value will ultimately be, but you can see that and we are following this trend line fairly well. But as we continue on through time, we're going to want to refit it. So the next time I likely would refit it would be at in the next bear market. So maybe the 2024, 2025 bear market or something, I would refit it. I tend to think that the next peak will be somewhere over here. It'll probably be before the next halving, but there's a chance it could be after the next halving. So why don't you chew on that for a little bit before you give me your gut reaction to what that would entail. But just imagine a world where there's a market cycle for Bitcoin and there's 2 halvings between one market cycle. Okay, so just think of that possibility. Try not to get too defensive of what you know to be true too quickly. So I think that as when you talk about, say, like a super bear cycle or a super market cycle, what you might call a super bear cycle could be after the next peak. So if the next peak is, say, 100K and it happens somewhere over here, and then it comes back down to 40K or 50K in 2024, 2025, my contention is that we would actually, because this one has not been refit to the bear market of the next cycle at all, we would probably come below this curve a little bit. And in fact, we probably would be in a multi-year period. You could call it a bear market. You might call it a bear market / accumulation phase, but it would likely last the better part of the late 2020s. Okay, so I anticipate the next cycle peak will be sometime, before 2025, probably 2023. It could be 2024, but somewhere over here. And then following that, we'll have a sell-off, in my opinion. And then it'll slowly, maybe it'll just move sideways, maybe slightly up. But I don't actually anticipate the next peak happening until closer to the early 2030s. Okay, so the early 2030s, and I think that peak will be somewhere between 300 to 500,000. So if you're of the opinion that 3 to 4 years would be, say, like a super bear market or a super bear market, then it could just be another way to say the cycles are lengthening. Therefore, the bear market / accumulation phase will be lengthening each market cycle. So this is the general contention. And again, if you didn't see this video, I would encourage you to go watch it, because it talks about these general lengthening cycles. This is just taking the price of the price of Bitcoin and dividing it by what the fair value is on the regression line, and showing that by 2023 the fair value will likely, or the overvaluation of the price against the fair value will probably be approximately 250%. And one of the reasons why I think this is interesting is because if you look at the last 3 cycles and you see, okay, well, this one looks like it's around 6,000% overvalued, the first cycle. The second cycle is around 3,000% overvalued. The third one was around 1,000% overvalued. So it's just kind of a nice mathematical projection here, right? So divided by 2, divided by 3, if this one's divided by 4, it would put it at a 250% overvaluation, which obviously lines up with this line. What does it mean for the price of Bitcoin to be overvalued by 250% in late 2020 or in mid 2023 or something? Well, if the fair value of Bitcoin in, say, mid 2023 is around 40,000, then a 250% overvaluation would put it at $40,000. Now, let me clear something up, because I saw a question today, and I don't think it's a dumb question. I just think it's someone not being super cognizant of how you deal with percentages. So someone asked me, they said, well, if the fair value is 40K and it's 250% overvalued, then how do you get 140,000? Because 40 times 2.5 is 100K, right? But 250% overvalued does not mean you multiply by 2.5, right? 100% overvalued would mean you multiply by 2 because it's 100% overvalued. It's 2x, right? So so 100% would be a multiple of 2, right? If it's say 200% overvalued or 300% overvalued, you can continue to just walk through that math, right? I mean, it's fairly straightforward. So you have to be able to convert, I guess, those percentages. It's not just a simple, if it's 200% overvalued, that doesn't mean that it's going to be that's not just a 2x, right? A 200% overvalued is not just, doesn't just mean like say a 2x multiple. So I hope that makes sense, because if Bitcoin is say 100% overvalued, then, and it's, let's say the fair value is 40K, if it's 100% overvalued, then it would put it at 80K. And if it's 200% overvalued, then it would put it at 120K, and then 250% overvalued would then put it at 140K. So I hope that makes sense. And then looking back out at this is probably more or less what I think will happen. Obviously, there's some uncertainty in exactly how the price will get there, but something like this, it could take longer. Maybe it'll take it until 2024. But I do think sometime in 2023 is likely. Let me read some of the questions. I'm really far behind now. If the market cap of crypto is supposed to be 10 trillion, wouldn't Link BC near 1K, seeing it's most likely will stay in the top 10, maybe top 5? I mean, it's possible. And remember that even if the market cap does see 10 trillion, it will likely be a very brief period of time. Okay? It'll be a very brief period of time. Chess Diagnostic says, when are you going to accept my chess challenge on Lee Chess? I have done a few challenges on the stream. I mean, it's hard to project what Bitcoin could do in 2040, right? The only thing I'm mainly concerned about is what it can do in the next 3 to 4 years. What it does beyond that isn't really my concern right now. Again, as I've said many times on the channel, I don't claim to be altruistic in the manner of I think that everyone in the world needs to start using cryptocurrency. The purpose is for me, it's to make money, right? It's to have investments that are going to give me a nice ROI. Yeah, it will be nice if people use some of these different tools in their everyday lives. But at the end of the day, if I don't make money on this transition, then that was my own fault, right? So the point of this channel is mostly just looking at things from a quantitative perspective, rather than anything else. All right, let me read some of the other questions. Someone says, I think we will top out at the end of 2022 around 100K, maybe even less. Yeah, it's possible. I think I've contended that the end of 2022 would be the earliest it could peak. I really don't think it will happen the end of 2022, but I will at least contend that it is a possibility, and it's much stronger a possibility than the end of 2021. I think the end of 2021 has essentially almost a negligible chance of being the peak. I think it's more so likely to be, at least another 18 months after that. Someone just wrote S2F, stock to flow. I mean, my opinion on stock to flow is that it's nothing more than a marketing gimmick that people tend to like just because it tells them what they want to hear and not what they need to hear. Someone says, Ben, how will your content change in 2024 if we're in a crypto bear market? Well, as I've said before, right, the content will change because the content of the channel is to chase the most lucrative risk-adjusted returns, and right now that's cryptocurrency. I'm not gonna talk about cryptocurrency every day if I think we're in a multi-year bear market. So I might talk about stock like equities or precious metals or maybe even real estate. God help me. So these are things that the channel could potentially pivot to over the years. Sorry, Crypto Fat says he lost 120K in crypto because incorrect private keys after firmware update. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's a tough loss. I don't know if there's any potential recourse. I mean, if there is, I would try to first look into that, but I'm not sure that there would be. So one of the common questions, right, is what will Bitcoin do because of this event or because of this news? As I've said before, like, I don't think that Bitcoin really cares about the news that much. And what I mean by that is it, I mean, of course it sometimes reacts to news. Of course it'll sometimes react to news. But my point is that in a bull market, it does not care about bad news, and in a bear market, it does not care about good news. Okay? So there's been a lot of things that have been happening over the last few weeks, and despite all that, Bitcoin is still above its 20-week moving average, and in fact, it's back above 11K. It's at $11,087, despite the fact that the world around us seems to be crumbling down, right? I mean, in terms of the global economy. So, again, as I've said before, I don't think that in a bear market, people care about good news, and in a bull market, people just don't care about bad news. So what that means is, in a bear market, imagine all the events that have unfolded over the last 6 months or 3 months had occurred in 2018. Bitcoin would have just been hammered and hammered and hammered, okay? But, I mean, at the same time, in 2018, if someone said they named their dog Bitcoin and then the next week that dog got sick, the market would tank, right? Because everyone is super reactive to bad news. They say, oh no, this must be bad because, of some ridiculous reason. Therefore, the market tanks. In a bull market, it doesn't, like you could say that every, something crazy happened, someone's about to sell 100,000 Bitcoin on the exchange, and really no one cares, right? Or on the other hand, you could say something like, some random small company that no one's ever heard of, did something remotely related to Bitcoin, and then the price of Bitcoin pumps, right? So this is what I mean by in bull markets, people just don't care about bad news, and in bear markets, people just don't care about good news. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the momentum of the market, and the momentum of the market, in my opinion, is a lot more important than what's on the daily news for the day. Let me see what other questions we have. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel again and like the content if you enjoy it. Remember to check out the premium list at intothecryptoverse.com. Again, I'll use this opportunity. You get access to a weekly premium report, a weekly premium video, a risk dashboard, which is what I use to trade, a premium Telegram alerts channel, and a premium Telegram chat room. So check it out. And then also make sure you check out the public Telegram channel that I have if you guys want access to a growing community. We have over 6,500 people. So if you guys want access to a large cryptocurrency community, I would encourage you to check it out. Yeah, someone says it cared about the wait, let me make sure I read it right. Let me scroll back up. Yeah, I can go off on a couple tangents here I'm seeing in the chat, but let me just... Okay, someone says it cared about the lockdown announcement in March. Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, I would argue that, yeah, I mean, Bitcoin wasn't holding the 20-week, so the argument was there was no bull market at the time. Bitcoin had not tested and held the 20-week, right? And I think the first test of the 20-week is going to is a monthly process. It's not just you go down to it for a day and you say, oh, we tested the 20-week, therefore we're in a bull market. No, we need months and months of testing it before we can regain the confidence we need to continue moving up to the next step up. So my contention back in February and in March, as many people were saying it was, this was the bull market, I said, you know what? We had a golden cross. We're above the 20-week. We still need to hold the 20-week as support, which we haven't done yet. Okay, we haven't held the 20-week as support. This is not a bull market. Okay, even if you want to believe it, it was not a bull market. Now, at least we're trying to hold it as support. And the longer we do this, I think there's a better and better argument to say, you know what? Maybe we are starting a bull market. Maybe this is going to be the time where we look back in hindsight and say, oh yeah, this was the start of the bull market, right? I mean, if we put on our trusty regression line, maybe we look back in a few years and say this was the start of the bull market, but we just don't know yet. There certainly is a good possibility that it is. I don't want to pretend like it's not. The bulls are certainly putting up a better fight now than they were 6 months ago or last September. But yeah, again, we'll have to see. We'll see how it plays out. Someone said. Elaborate on real estate. I could make videos on real estate. If you guys want me to, maybe I'll make a couple. My general thing about real estate is that people just operate on recency bias. If you look at the spread, it actually hasn't changed a whole lot. I think that there could be a housing correction, but these sensationalist YouTube videos that talk about a huge housing crash. The housing market. What happened in 2008 was it was amazing in a bad way, right? It was amazing in a bad way. I think this time around there are a lot of institutional people. There's a lot of people that are actually there to scoop up this real estate. So while I do contend that there could be a drop in prices, I do think there will likely be a drop in prices in real estate in general. I don't think that you need to take what these sensationalist YouTube video titles where someone is saying the housing market crash of 2020 or the housing market crash of 2021, because whenever it doesn't happen, they're gonna make the same video and then just change the year. They'll say the housing crash of 2022, the housing crash of 2023, right? There will likely be a correction, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere close to what happened in 2008. Now, I understand that there's a lot of you that will vehemently disagree with that statement, right? I'm sure there's so many of you that are banking on the housing market to just absolutely go to shambles in the next 6 to 12 months because some guy on YouTube who is a self-proclaimed expert told you that was going to happen. But my contention is that if you actually look at the data and look at the spread, the basis point spread on housing prices, it actually hasn't changed a whole lot, and it does not. There's nothing about it that signifies that there's about to be a huge crash. Okay, again, I contend there could be corrections. Right, one of the main corrections is there's been recently. If people are moving out of the cities and into the suburbs, because you can work from home. I think as a few more years goes on, I think this will shift back, and people will probably start moving back to the cities again, and then prices will rebound in the cities, and it'll basically correct backwards. Again, this is something that maybe we can get into in another video. I know most of you are here to hear me talk about cryptocurrency and not real estate. But just know that my general position on real estate is that there's a good chance there will be a correction in the market. But if you're waiting for a huge crash because some random guy on YouTube told you it was going to happen, I wouldn't hold your breath on that. This is what I would say. I would not hold your breath on that because the data does not suggest at the present time that that's about to imminently happen. I understand there's the mortgage forbearance program coming to an end. My argument again is there's a lot of investors that are willing to come in and scoop up those properties. All right, let me look back at some of the questions. It looks like I've gotten pretty far behind, so I'm not going to be able to answer all of them. I'll just if there's really good ones, I'll try to answer them. Do you still feel confident about Ethereum 2.0? I mean, I feel confident about it in the sense that I think it'll launch this cycle. But if it doesn't, I do have hedges in case. Like Cardano is one, Polkadot is one. This is why I say it's important to have hedges. Someone says 20-week MA drinking game. Every time Benjamin says 20-week MA, you have to take you have to do a shot. Hopefully you guys don't play that drinking game because you probably would be drinking quite a bit. Stuffy Lamb says, I work in mortgage closing. Lending standards are all right these days. '08 won't happen again. A major deflationary event is the only thing bringing down home prices with these rates. Yeah. Okay, it seems like there are a decent number of people that would like to hear more about real estate. By the way, the reason I've mentioned real estate before is if you follow this channel, I hope, first of all, what I hope and what is the reality can be two entirely different things, right? So I hope that I'm mainly attracting an audience that is not 100% crypto, because I know there's a lot of people out there that they only invest in crypto and they wouldn't even know how to buy anything else. Like they wouldn't even know how to buy a mutual fund. They wouldn't know how to buy anything else because all they care about is crypto and gambling in the crypto markets. So I hope that I have more well-rounded people watching the channel. So one of the ideas, right, of course, is if this is the time to grow wealth in cryptocurrency, if looking at Bitcoin and saying, what, this is basically our general reaccumulation zone. If we pull up the BLX, right, you can see we're generally in that reaccumulation zone territory, right, that we've seen many times. And one day we're going to get up here, I think. One day we're going to get up here, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to want to come into the market and say, oh, is it a good time to buy? And I'm going to say, hell no. Like, it's not a good time to buy. And maybe you buy and it goes up 2x in the short term, but this is what's called gambling, right? This is not investing. This is gambling, because you're investing in a coin that's already up like maybe 20 or 30x in 2 or 3 years, and then you're coming into the market. It's the same thing what happened with Link a few weeks ago, right? Or a few months ago. We were talking about it when it was $2, $3, $4. Same thing with ADA. We were talking about it was 2 cents, 3 cents, 4 cents. Inevitably, there's people that come into the market after ADA was already at like 13 cents, and then they're saying, okay, should I buy it now, right? Or they come into the market when Link is at $15 and say, okay, well, should I buy it now? Is it too late? The point is I think that both of these coins will bail you out over the market cycle, and that, like, I think Link will go higher than $20. I think ADA will go higher than 15 cents. But the point is, like, why are you buying the coins when they're already pumping, right? You want to get the coins before that time, because the general idea that I put out, right, is you never want to go chase a pump, but you must always be ready for one. So, get your positions ready and then wait for the pump of that coin to come to you. Don't just sit there on the sideline, wait for a coin to go up 200% and then go chase it, right? This is, okay, it's not financial advice. You can do whatever you want to do, but this is not what I would recommend at all. This is not what I would recommend. So I would say to be diligent in your approach, to get the coins when they're down, when they're in accumulation phase, like we said with Monero in this accumulation phase over here, like we said with Link and ADA and with Ethereum, and saying this is the accumulation phase of your lifetime, back when it was $230. Get the coins when everyone is saying that everything's going to zero, right? Don't throw $100,000 at Chainlink when it's already up 10x in a relatively short period of time. Okay, this is the main point of the channel. So to tie that back into real estate, right? If you're making key investments now that you're hoping to grow your wealth, you want to provide a better life for your family. You want you want to be able to, like, whatever your moon is, right? Whatever your, I don't really like that word, but whatever your goal is, whether it's paying off your car, whether it's paying off your house, whether it's buying a new house, whether it's buying a vacation house, whether it's buying a private jet, I don't know what your goal is, but whatever your goal is, my contention, right, is that you're going to want to diversify when the market is at its peak, and one of the ways you can diversify, of course, is into mutual funds. But you should already, I mean, in my opinion, you should already be having these, but you would protect that wealth in mutual funds. But one of the things you could do is you could also scoop up some real estate, right? You could take these crypto profits, scoop up some real estate, and then have some investment properties or something that way. And therefore, even if the crypto market does crash, at least you got out a lot of your investments, and you were able to see a nice ROI. And then you just continue on your merry way, and then life goes on. But the difference now is that you still probably have money to put in crypto, and you have several real estate properties that you maybe can draw an income from. Or you have some cryptocurrency, but now you have a lot of money in a few mutual funds that are returning you like 8% on average or something, right? So this is what, if you're going from the point of like where you are right now to where you want to be, like focus on that goal. Because whenever the market cycle gets here, like whenever the end of the cycle gets here and we get to the top, I don't want you to be super greedy and say, you know what, Bitcoin's at 100K, now it needs to go to 500K, or it needs to go to 1 million, and then you watch it go to 130K and you say, oh, I knew it was going to go up, and you still don't sell, and then you wake up one morning and it's crashed 50%. And then you're like, what the hell am I going to do? You wait for it to go back up, and then maybe it goes back up to 90K, and you say, okay, yeah, we're back, business as usual, and then it just drops back down, right? So I want you to avoid this scenario. And I think that by practicing with things now, like with Chainlink, right, and looking at these moves and DCing in and out of the market, coming up with a strategy that sticks to the math rather than how you're emotionally feeling is a good strategy, because you just say, you know what? My emotions in the crypto markets have almost never served me well. It's better to just stick to what the math says, and the math suggests I either buy or I either sell. So this is the goal of the channel. It's more of a quantitative finance, data science driven approach. How many videos have you guys ever seen me make that say, the top 10 coins to make you $1 million this month? Or buy this coin, is this the next coin to 1000x? Like, we don't say that because it's just sensationalist. It's just a way to get clicks and views. This is not the way, in my opinion, to invest. This is a way that other crypto YouTubers can encourage you to just click on their videos and hear whatever altcoin they were paid to promote that day. Okay, so there's a difference. This channel is focused. I'm not saying all YouTube channels are like that, right? There's a lot of YouTube channels that are not like that, but you probably know some that are like that. And if I can assure you that if someone is promoting a coin that you've never heard of before, there's a lot of times, not always, there's a lot of times it's because they're getting paid to do so, and they've been given some of that coin in advance to promote it, okay? Just go back and look a few months ago, right? There was a lot of coins pumping, going crazy. They absolutely had no use case whatsoever, but some big crypto person promoted them. They went up 10x, and now they're probably down 70, 80%, okay? It's just the same thing over and over. The cycle repeats, the dumb money comes in, the smart money gets out. Business as usual. Let me look at some of the other questions here. Okay. I'll remind you, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you guys like the content. I am trying to get to 40,000 subscribers before the end of the year. I think I'm going to make it with time to spare because I'm already at like 39,300 or something like that. But I would really mean a lot if you do subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up if you guys like the content. Now the real question is what will reach 100K first, the amount of subscribers I have or the price of Bitcoin. I think I'm going to beat Bitcoin to 100K. This is my impression. I think I will beat it to 100K. Someone says advice on how to DCA out when reaching all-time highs. Do we go to stablecoins? This is a good question, and I cover it some on the premium list. But, I mean, in general, what I do is if it's an altcoin, I'm normally DCAing it back to Bitcoin or Ethereum. If it's Bitcoin or Ethereum, I'm either DCAing it to an altcoin or a stablecoin or cash, right? Just getting out of the market. So for instance, with Link, when Link went up against USD, and I went to $20, the first few sells down here I went to Ethereum, or the first sell I went to Ethereum. The next ones all went to Bitcoin, and it was basically based on the risk level at the time. So the risk level of Chainlink to Bitcoin was more enticing because it said, you know what, the risk is really high on Link compared to Bitcoin. Therefore, to reduce your risk, you convert Link to Bitcoin. And I think this has worked out really well because it also allows you to maintain exposure to the crypto market, right? If you're investing in crypto, you want exposure to the market risk, right, which is essentially Bitcoin, but you also sometimes you want exposure to that idiosyncratic risk that comes with very specific altcoins. So by having, a little bag of coins, not a lot, right? Not a lot, but a bag of them, different ones, you can decrease your idiosyncratic risk, right? The risk of any one coin goes up or down too much, and try to create yourself a little index fund of crypto. However, I contend it's better to understand how like 4, 5, or maybe 6 coins work in very close detail, rather than just put your money on like 100 coins and just hope for the best. Because for every dollar you put on one, there's an opportunity cost of not putting it somewhere else. Robert Jones says, what's interesting on Link is that the last wave is larger. Yeah, the interesting thing about that, though, is the risk level of Link Bitcoin at the top here it reached the same level as it had over here, basically. I mean, within a couple percentage points. So it doesn't always feel intuitive, but it's the way it gets there, right? It's how quickly it gets there that matters, and the volatility over a long period of time. Someone asked about the regression, but so yeah, I know I keep getting asked. So I probably will. At least I don't know if I'm going to publish it on public or not. It'll whenever I do publish it, it'll definitely go to the people on the premium list. But maybe I'll publish it for everyone to use as well. But yeah, the reason I haven't done it yet is because I got so bombarded when the crypto markets were moving. Everything just got kind of crazy, and I was just trying to keep up with everything. But now that if things can stay cool for a little bit, I probably will start adding some trading view indicators. I know I said that like 2 months ago, so you might not have any reason to believe that I will. But my plan, anyways, is to start adding some trading view indicators, so that at least people on the premium list can use, and then maybe some people on just the public channel can also access. So it's not there yet, so don't waste your time looking for it because you won't find it. I mean, if you look here, I literally just have it under my scripts. Like these are all the scripts that I use. The recent move higher in Link, it just changes the risk bands because it accounts for price volatility and time. So this is how it changes it. Can you make a regression band live chart with the 20 MA for us and premium? What do you mean a regression band live chart? I mean, it just means something like this. By the way, you guys might not know this, but if you go to, I believe it's intothecryptocharts.com, so intothecryptocharts.com, and it might take a while to load. This was fan made. I mean, this is not my website. A fan offered to make it. And I don't think it's under a very expensive package. But you can see the regression band, right? I mean, you don't need to wait for my video. You can go here and see the non-bubble logarithmic regression, right? And this was, it's been here for a while. You can see it's currently at around the fair value. So I would say you could check out www.intothecryptocharts.com, and you can follow along with where the regression band is. If you scroll down, you can see, all the regression bands, right, that I have here. This one is not updated, so I don't think he made it so this one updated live. So it just stops here in the fourth cycle, but we're certainly past this part of the cycle. And then this one is live down here. So I think just the third chart is not live. But if you're looking for the regression band, at least if you go to www.intothecryptocharts.com, you can see it. Please give the video a thumbs up. We have 500 people viewing and not even 200 likes. There's a rumor going around that Bitcoin can't get above 11.1 until we get to 250 likes. I don't know if it's true. It's just what I heard. But if you guys think it could be true, then you might want to give the video a like. Also, subscribe to the channel. Link's starting to get a little bit more juice here. I'm not sure what you mean it plays out live. I mean, this one does play out live. On TradingView, it plays out live. I mean, on Into the Crypto Charts, I mean, this plays out live. So I'm not sure what you mean. No, I mean, you guys can go to the website. It's not for premium members only. HS says, I was wondering, do you really believe $10 trillion market cap? I mean, if that's the case, ADA or Link at 13 cents and 15 bucks will be like a drop in the bucket. Yeah, but the point is it's a drop in the bucket now, but if you can sell your Link at like $18 and then reaccumulate it at $8, then by the time that it does go to $1,000, if it does go to that level, which I'm not saying it will, but if it did, you could have a lot more Link. This is the idea of taking advantage of these short-term bubbles. Dio says, would you say you upload more premium videos or public? Definitely more public right now, but as the years go on, it'll slowly shift. HS has been as projecting a $10 trillion market cap. Correction, I'm predicting approximately 10 trillion, plus or minus a few trillion, right? I don't know. I mean, it could be 7 trillion. It could be 13 trillion. I really don't know. I think it'll be somewhere around 10 trillion, plus or minus a few trillion. And that's why I've contended many times, what's a few trillion among friends? Because obviously no one can predict exactly how high it will go or where it will go. You can't access it yet in premium. That's why I'm saying, like, my goal is to make it so that you can access it. But right now you can't access it. Can a short-term ADA bubble get to $10? Maybe. I probably would mostly be out of ADA by that point. I'd probably be mostly out of ADA at a few dollars if it made it there. Do you still try to convince friends or family on the brilliance of Bitcoin, other cryptos, or have you given up? For the most part, I don't do that. There are a few friends that know what I do, and they've actually gotten into crypto or are thinking about it, but I don't generally try to cram crypto down their throat in by any means. I'm glad you like the channel, Tribal Trap. Severin Lugwood says, what do you think about Litecoin? It's one of those coins down at the moment. It's already around for a long time and was oscillating. Hey, as we said before, Litecoin is one of those ones that the opportunity cost on holding it is too high, and don't take my word for it. I ran the risk-adjusted returns. I looked at the efficient frontier, and it looked like having 0% Litecoin was the best way to go based on historical data. historical volatility, and historical return since 2015. I think if you're going to buy Litecoin, I'm not saying if you own it, you should sell it. But what I am saying is if for me, if I wanted to buy Litecoin, which I'm not saying that I do, but if I did, I would wait until Bitcoin gets to the prior all-time high because that historically is when it makes a major move. The same thing goes with XRP, right? These are just simply coins I would not touch until Bitcoin is near its all-time high of $20,000. James C says, "May I ask what your moon has been?" For me, the moon is an object that orbits approximately 250,000 miles away from the Earth, and that's about it. And it's made up of mainly two types of rock: a northocite and or is it basalt and a north? I don't remember. 12 astronauts have landed there. Would have been 14, but obviously Apollo 13, there were some issues there. That's what the moon is to me. I know it's different on other channels. By the way, you guys might not know this, but back in 2010, I worked as an intern at NASA Johnson Space Center. So and actually when I was there, I programmed the lunar rover component of a distributed space simulation on the moon. So to me, that's what the moon is, not a nice ROI in crypto. What coding language have I used before? Python, C++. I don't really consider MATLAB a programming language, but I've used MATLAB. I did some Fortran in college, and actually, I also was over at NASA Langley back in 2009, and I used Fortran there. So I also have used Fortran before, and actually, they weren't even using Fortran 95. They were using like Fortran 77, believe it or not. I prefer. Someone says, "Do you prefer Ethereum USD or Ethereum Bitcoin?" I generally like Ethereum Bitcoin. This is the main. This is one of the main trends that I look at. Right, the momentum shift in the market: Ethereum Bitcoin versus Ethereum USD. But I still think that both can be useful. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you guys like the content and give the video a thumbs up. I did raise the premium prices, Andy. I'm not really sure what you're talking about, man. Maybe you have an old version of the website cached, but the prices did go up almost 2x. When do I plan to update the wristband for gold and silver? That's a good question. I don't. Hopefully in the next couple weeks, but I guess when I just get to it. I mean, Daniel Gibson says, what do you think about Monero? I actually just published a video on Monero like 2 hours ago, so I would encourage you to go watch that. I don't know if these institutional places are going to short the market. I have no idea. Again, I don't really care about what the news is. I mean, the regression band for Ethereum is just this one, right? I mean, this is the one that I use anyways. For this. What's your exit plan like? To just dynamically DCA out of the market based on the risk levels, which is on the premium list. Can you elaborate on what risk levels you DCA out of your S&P? Yeah, I DCA as long as the risk is less than 0.75, and then I start selling if it's above 0.8. It went above 0.8 a few weeks ago. I sold 10%, and then it quickly dropped back down below, so I'm just DCAing that money back into the market. I have many videos talking about Chainlink. No, I don't really have a sell regime for Ethereum like for Bitcoin. I mean, I think in general though, like we have plenty of other metrics that we can use, like the risk levels. There's a few other things we can use. Do you think Ethereum Bitcoin ratio will reach a new all-time high in this cycle, or just Ethereum USD? I think Ethereum USD will. It's tough to say if Ethereum Bitcoin will. If it does, I don't think it would go much higher than 0.15. I think it's more so honing into a fair value that is probably less than that. If we switch over to say the weekly time frame, oh my gosh, this looks awful. Let me just get rid of some of these. So I mean, one option, right, is that it's going to do something like this, right, where maybe it comes up like that and comes back down, and goes into like what a fair value is. I don't really know if it'll hit a new all-time high. If it does, I don't think that it'll pass Bitcoin by market cap. But if it does pass Bitcoin by market cap, I don't think it'll be long-lived. At least this cycle, anyways. Do you have any videos on DCing into the market? Yes, I do. Just look on my channel. Look for like Bitcoin risk or something. There's plenty of videos on it. Is there an Ethereum USD absolute price you would stop buying? I would keep buying as long as the risk level is low enough. So as long as it's less than 0.5. Any clarification on DOT? Nope, no clarification. Not enough data to mean anything. Glad you guys enjoy the videos. Sonic Crunch. Do you start with 1/15 for selling all your coins? No, some of them I start with 1/10 if I sell them at the 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, and 0.8 risk levels, because some of them I don't think will make it to the last one, so I just split it up into tenths rather than 15ths. I don't think gold will go to $10,000 within 3 to 5 years. Maybe a few $1,000s more than where it is, but not 10,000. How many Bitcoins do you own? Not gonna answer that. More than 0. How much Bitcoin do you think a person should hold? I mean, this is all dependent on anyone's specific situation. There's not a magic number. For some reason, or for some people, that number could be 0.01 Bitcoin. For someone else, it could be 0.1 Bitcoin. For someone, it could be 1 Bitcoin, and for someone else, it could be 10. It depends on anyone's specific situation. A Fast Parrot, you're welcome. Glad you like the content. Maybe silver will go to 50 or 100. I mean, again, they more so yearly moves, right? I wouldn't anticipate them making incredible moves where they go from where silver would go from say $15 to $150 in a year. These assets tend to move much slower and take years and years and years to make these long moves. In fact, if you look at the last couple decades, gold really has not performed that well. But I mean, yeah, you have to, if you go back and look at all of its history, it has had a few major bull markets. Again, make sure you subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up. Also, remember to check out I have to go in a few minutes, guys. Remember to check out the premium list at intothecryptoverse.com. You get access to the weekly report, the weekly video, the risk dashboard, and then the private Telegram alerts channel and the private Telegram chat room. If you guys want to access the public Telegram chat room, you can check out the link also that I'm putting in the comment section. The beautiful thing, I mean, someone says, I hope at some point Bitcoin will reach the red band again, and I hope it's not before 2023. This is a great point, right? I mean, if it goes to the red band tomorrow and it respects the red band like it has before, that would only be a $60,000 Bitcoin. I personally hope that we don't get up there for another 3 years or so, that it's around $120,000, $130,000 Bitcoin. A fast para re-housing market. Is there a reason it appears nearly everyone, online at least, seems to think it's going to crash like 2008 again, and why they're probably wrong, or just sensationalist clickbait? Well, as I've said before, I do think it is sensationalist clickbait. I've also said that most people don't get the markets right. Remember, like, most of the people that are claiming something, most of these people are going to be wrong. So I think they're just doing it for clickbait. I don't think that maybe they actually believe it, and if they do believe it, then whatever they're having, I'll take twice whatever they're having, because I don't know why they would necessarily believe that 08 is going to happen again, because the market conditions are entirely different. And I don't think that anything like 08 will happen in the short term again, right? I mean, of course, it could happen one day, but I don't think it's about to happen right now. Of course, there could be a correction in the market, but I don't think there's going to be a huge housing crash like most people tend to believe. And again, as I said before, you can look at like the basis point spread on mortgages and whatnot, and see that the markets are not really expecting a huge change. And there's a lot of research again to show that investors are there to scoop up a lot of this real estate if it becomes available. And there were a lot of investors in 08 that came in and ultimately scooped it up, and they made a killing on it. So my contention is that there will be plenty of people to scoop up the real estate. And guess what? I bet you a lot of these people, not all of them, I mean, there's going to be a lot of them that are not, but a small portion will be people that are cashing out their crypto to go buy real estate. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. I gotta go. I gotta go cook dinner for the family. They're all getting hungry, so I gotta get going. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Give the video a thumbs up. Hopefully we'll have many more live streams in the coming days and weeks. I'll go ahead and put on the Telegram channel there if you guys wanna check it out. If you want to access to a growing community. I think we have over 6,500 people in there right now, so make sure you check it out. Remember, if you want access to the premium list, you can check it out at intothecryptoverse.com, and I'll see you guys next time. Remember, there's plenty of videos on the public channel you guys can watch. I just posted like 3 in the last 24 hours. Plenty of content. Go watch it. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you next time. Bye.